He was the last dragon in the world, yet he mistook the first villain she saw as her mother. To get the plot back on track, she shipped the dragon who hadn't yet bonded with her to the female protagonist. However, the dragon kept escaping back to her side. "Boo-hoo, mommy, don't abandon me." When the little dragon returned for the 101st time, it even brought back a man with it. "It was you who abandoned your child, wasn't it? Please answer my question." The overwhelming pressure made the villain struggle to breathe. She looked up to examine the person before her. Purple hair, yellow eyes, and that green brooch. Isn't this the male protagonist from the novel? He was a senior officer in the Imperial Investigation Department. His specialty was shooting, the kind that would blast people's brains out. And because before she transmigrated, the original owner already had dozens of prior offenses. Therefore, the justice-driven male protagonist had long been keeping tabs on her. The reason she fled to the countryside was to escape his pursuit. But now he had actually found her. The villain stuttered slightly and hurriedly explained, "It's not abandonment, I just wanted to send her back to her original guardian." But the next second, the little dragon clutched at her crying, "Don't abandon me." But the next second, the little dragon clutched at her crying, "Don't abandon me." "Whimper, I won't bother you anymore. Please don't throw me away." Damn, it could talk now? Yesterday it could only make baby sounds. After hearing this, the male protagonist's eyes grew even colder. "If you're not the guardian, then what's your relationship with this child?" And the little dragon's pitiful master made the situation even worse. The male protagonist scribbled in his notebook, "Child abandonment, child abuse, and making a 3-year-old call her master." Saying this, he ignored the villain's explanations and was about to escort her to the palace, all because she had so many prior offenses. Her heart jolted. This won't do. That way she would be completely finished. So in her panic, she noticed a rope nearby. Then she activated her magic power and tied up the male protagonist. But since she had just transmigrated, she was not very familiar with the control of magic. She also got tangled in the rope. And then she stumbled and fell on top of the male protagonist. She rubbed her head as she sat up, only to feel a disgusted and disdainful gaze from below. The villain instantly started sweating profusely. To make matters worse, the little dragon chose this moment to laugh inappropriately. "Hee hee, I know this is how baby dragons are made." The serious expression on the male protagonist's face almost cracked as he coldly told the villain to get up. "I forgot to stay vigilant around you. However, you really don't know how to reflect on your actions." Just as the male protagonist was about to criticize and educate her, he suddenly noticed the villain sitting motionless on the ground. She involuntarily had a nosebleed, not because she was a pervert, but because she had low blood pressure. Seeing the situation wasn't right, she snapped her fingers. Instantly, a rolling pin appeared in midair and gave the male protagonist's forehead a solid whack. The villain smiled. "Sir Leonard, this is my territory. Such dangerous things are not allowed here." Time quickly moved to nightfall. Looking at the unconscious male protagonist, the villain felt a bit nervous. "I only hit him once, he won't kick the bucket, right?" Just then the little dragon comforted her. "Master, are you okay?" "Baby, just to be safe, you absolutely cannot transform back to your original form in front of that uncle. Also, from now on you're not allowed to call me master." "Can I stay here?" "But you are my master now. I will protect you." "I understand master is troubled by that man, then we just need to eliminate him, right?" "I'll do a good job." The villain suddenly realized, although this little one is cute, it's still a dragon after all. Letting it loose would cause deaths. So to correct this point, she decided to keep the dragon by her side first. So she said, "I won't abandon you, and also you can't kill people randomly." The little dragon was overjoyed. "As long as you don't leave me, I'm willing to do anything." 1 hour later, the male protagonist who had woken up untied his ropes and began to observe his surroundings. This place was too simple to be that woman's home, and it was really messy too. Compared to his luxurious mansion in the capital, it was like heaven and earth. She's living so modestly in the countryside, what kind of psychological change has occurred? Suddenly, the male protagonist walked into her bedroom. He noticed her already asleep, and couldn't help thinking, if only her heart was as beautiful as her face. However, the urgent matter at hand was to find the gun that the villain had taken. Just then the little dragon suddenly appeared. "I'm telling you, that's enough. If you dare to hurt Assel, I absolutely won't stand idly by." The male protagonist noticed he seemed to have grown a bit taller, and his speech was clearer than yesterday, so he asked the little dragon about his name. "Me? I don't have a name yet, because Assel hasn't bestowed one upon me." The male protagonist found it strange. Why use the word bestow? Suspicious growth rate, strange use of master, a child without a name, could he be a dragon? But the little dragon didn't notice his gaze, just involuntarily recalled Assel, how she had once gently prepared milk powder for him, and would tirelessly cover him with blankets when he kicked them off. So he couldn't help feeling incredibly happy. Therefore, he didn't want Assel to feel anxious because of this man. He needed to behave well. Although such a bothersome person could just be eliminated directly, Assel had said not to harm people randomly. So he spoke up, "Uncle, do you want to make a deal with me? Help me prevent Assel from abandoning me, and in return I won't kill you or interfere with you." The male protagonist understood he couldn't let the villain and dragon imprint and form a contract, but to prevent it he would need to investigate up close. So he immediately agreed to the little dragon's proposal. The next day when the villain woke up, she found the male protagonist sitting there leisurely reading a newspaper. "Oh, you sure slept long. Since you're awake, why don't you sit down and have a good chat with me?" Because she was curious about how he had untied the rope, the villain obediently stayed put. Then she heard the male protagonist say, "Your crimes are already very clear, please come with me." TSK, what evidence do you have? Don't falsely accuse people without proof. I know you won't come with me willingly, so in that case I'll just have to stay with you. Therefore I'll be living here from now on. What the hell? Did you even ask for my consent? You should remember submitting a letter of reflection and guarantee 2 years ago. You said if you refused investigation, you would return all your property to society. The villain instantly felt helpless. Damn, the original owner with over a dozen prior offenses seemed to have really written something like that. So she had no choice but to agree. The male protagonist with level 10 cleanliness OCD rolled up his sleeves dashingly. "Well, in that case, I'll start my investigation by cleaning up your messy house. This is a prohibited magical item, it needs to be confiscated. How long have you had this thing here? No, it must be thrown away immediately. Leonard's actions were as fierce as a tiger. This needs to be confiscated, that needs to be scrapped, and those need to be thrown away." Suddenly he felt cleaning wasn't exciting enough. After all, there was a garbage producer right beside him. So he simply threw the villain out and did it himself. 2.5 minutes later, the house was completely transformed, even the walls were polished to a shine. A certain slob was dumbfounded and could hardly believe this was her home, so she hurriedly said thank you. Leonard turned his head away tsundere style. "No need to thank me, I'm not trying to help you. This is just part of the investigation." The little dragon was overjoyed. "I helped Uncle too. Thank you, the house has become clean." But just then the villain suddenly felt dizzy. Then she collapsed uncontrollably. Her vision gradually blurred, she could only see a mess. When she woke up again, she suddenly thought that although she usually had low energy, she never expected to suddenly collapse. Noticing she was awake, the little dragon threw himself at her crying, "Woo-woo, master, you scared me." But the next second he was picked up by the man. "Little one, you can't hug someone who's sick." Then he carried the little one to the next room. Next he sat down beside Assel, saying, "Excuse me." Before Assel could react, she felt a cold large hand placed on her forehead. Then she heard Leonard say, "You still have a slight fever and need to rest properly." But fevers of this degree rarely cause people to faint. The next second he took Assel's hand to examine it carefully. Then he asked, "When did your body become so weak?" Assel found it strange because the original owner's body was very healthy. Then Leonard asked if she had any recent cases of magic overuse, and after receiving a negative answer he found it very strange. "Never mind that for now, but first you can't sleep with that child anymore. Because aren't you infected with a virus now? It would be bad if you infected a child." The little dragon looked pitiful. "Master, I can't sleep with you anymore?" Assel replied with an annoyed expression, "Don't call me master, call me Assel." She felt terrible, so she decided to give Assel one last loving hug for today. But was picked up like a chick by someone again. The next day, Leonard changed into an elegant suit. The tight clothing outlined his perfect figure. But unlike him, Assel dressed very casually, and Leonard immediately criticized, "You're dressed very freely and naturally today too." "So what? It's because of low blood pressure, and besides, how dressed up do you want a sick person to be?" "But Sir Leonard, you seem to be living very naturally at my house. What's wrong? Didn't you agree to let me stay at your house to investigate?" "Ah, fine, yeah." Just then Leonard suddenly noticed Assel's messy little blanket. So he simply went ahead and folded it up neat and tidy. Assel was shocked. This was basically like getting a cleaning-obsessed male mom. So she immediately teased, "Sir, being so meticulous will lead to early death." After hearing this, Leonard turned back coldly. "Are you cursing me?" Assel responded neither humbly nor arrogantly. "Not at all, I'm just sympathizing with you." Just as someone was about to get angry, suddenly there was a knock at the door. It turned out that because Leonard found Assel's illness strange, he had called for a doctor. 10 minutes later, the doctor said, "It appears to be malnutrition. May I ask what you usually eat?" "Bread, cookies and such, occasionally some eggs too. Although I also want to eat meat and seafood, but buying those comes in large quantities and they spoil easily. To have a proper meal you need to prepare food and clean up afterwards, it's too troublesome." The doctor smiled. "I understand now, so the root cause of your symptoms can be summed up in one word: laziness. And the magic in your body is too tangled up. Although pure magic has already left the historical stage in this era, there are still people who have magic flowing in their bodies from birth, just like you. This kind of magic comes from mysterious powers, and if not careful it can damage the body. Your condition is because the magic in your body is leaking out, combined with poor living habits. That's why it's so obvious. Sir Leonard, to change your wife's living habits, you need to help her more. That's the situation. As long as your physical strength can improve, it can stop the magic from leaking. As for why it's leaking, I don't know the specific reason yet." But when he saw the little dragon, he immediately understood everything. So it was the little one absorbing Mommy's magic. Because the magic on the little dragon was almost identical to that on Assel. In an instant, both of them stared sharply at a certain little one. He wondered in his heart, "Damn, did I do something wrong?" She was chased by an egg calling him Mommy. It turned out inside was the world's last black dragon cub. And dragons would form contracts during their hatching period with the person they had the most contact with. Little did he know the girl was terrified. Because she understood the dragon was the protagonist's contract beast, and would kill her, this villain, in the grand finale. The girl was devastated because the little dragon was indeed super cute. But compared to staying with her, this lazy good-for-nothing big villain, he would definitely be happier with the protagonist. And so the little dragon was abandoned. But soon he found his way back to the villain's home. When he saw her, all the pain of abandonment vanished into thin air. He wanted to tell the villain many times every day, "I really love you, I really like you." Because she was the one who held him when he came out of the egg. For this simple reason, the little dragon gave everything, even if she threw him away again and again. The little dragon loved her without asking for anything in return. But when the villain truly accepted him, she started getting frequently injured. The little dragon prayed to God that it wasn't him bringing misfortune to Assel. But the doctor said it was him absorbing Assel's magic. The little dragon was upset and tears dripped down, like a child who had done something wrong. He didn't want to hurt Assel but also didn't want to leave Assel. Just then the male protagonist suddenly spoke up. "What's this child's identity? Normal children don't absorb people's magic." Assel was terrified. She couldn't let the male protagonist know the little one was a dragon, so she said, "Just a 3-year-old child who fell from the sky." The male protagonist's face instantly darkened. "Are you sure he fell from the sky?" But the little dragon was clearly angrier. "What is this bad big brother doing? If you trouble Assel, I won't let you off." The male protagonist sighed. Fine, he really did fall from the sky. He suddenly thought that if Assel formed a contract with the dragon, it would solve the injury problem, because then the dragon's magic would flow into her body, but he couldn't allow this to happen. Because this woman was ambitious and didn't put social rules in her eyes at all. If someone like her obtained the dragon's power, it would surely be a disaster. So after much thought, he decided to help Assel strengthen her physical strength first. That way, even if magic leaked, her body wouldn't be affected. Said and done, he immediately displayed his male mom attributes. Quickly stir-fried large shrimp until golden brown on both sides. And poured sweet grape wine into the pot. Soon a steaming hot breakfast was ready. Assel was very shocked. This was the first time she had seen such delicious food. Taking a spoonful to taste, she was instantly conquered by the delicious food. "Oh my god, this is super delicious." Then she began wolfing it down. Afterward, she was pushed to the room by the male protagonist and fell fast asleep. Just then came the little dragon's pitiful voice. He lowered his head and muttered, "Uncle, you're just a liar. You promised you would let Assel form a contract with me, but why didn't you say anything just now?" His tiny body curled up slightly, hoping to realize the dream of being with Assel forever through forming a contract. Leonard discovered the little dragon seemed very attached to that evil witch, but he guessed it was one-sided after all. It was hard to believe Assel would open her heart to anyone. So he said, "You know what? If you continue staying by Assel's side, your absorption of her magic will eventually kill her." The little dragon instantly felt like he'd fallen into ice water, muttering, "Things will get better after forming a contract." "And uncle, didn't I ask you to help me?" Leonard sighed and said, "But my abilities are limited, and besides, have you noticed? Her body is already in that state, yet she doesn't mention anything about forming a contract." The little dragon instantly teared up, understanding the uncle's meaning. Does Assel really hate him? Or is he just a burden to her? He jumped down from the chair, planning to find an empty room to cry, but was caught by Leonard. The little dragon froze. Then he heard the other ask, "Why her? Why are you so fixated on that woman?" The little dragon wiped his tears. "Assel held me when I came out of the egg, so I'll love her forever." Suddenly Leonard thought, a dragon egg had recently gone missing from the Imperial City. It must be the little dragon. However, according to his investigation, Assel hadn't left this place in the past 2 years. Although he was an excellent magician, it was almost impossible to steal the egg without leaving any trace. Could there be an accomplice? So he asked the little dragon if he had heard any voices other than Assel's while in the egg. "Voices? I seem to have heard some, but I was too sleepy then, so I don't know who it was." Leonard's mind raced through the possibilities. Someone who had connections with Assel, who wouldn't be detected by the Imperial City's defense system, and could get close to the dragon egg. Probably only that person could do it. Meanwhile, on the other side, the blonde Leonard was thinking of was sleeping. He dreamed of someone gently holding him and softly calling his name. "Ollie, why are you feeling down? Are you angry again?" And that person was the jewel-like radiant and beautiful Assel. Just then the blonde suddenly woke up. He quickly sat up and chuckled, facing the sunlight through the window. "Haha, what a terrible nightmare." The little dragon, who used to cling to her all day, always asking for hugs, had suddenly grown up overnight. Not only did he stop saying "I really love Assel, I really like Assel" every day, but also refused any physical contact with her. But the girl who had abandoned him multiple times now felt uneasy. So she hurriedly asked the little dragon what had happened. The little dragon calmly said nothing was wrong. He was trying hard to resist the urge to hug Assel. After all, just being close would unknowingly drain Assel's magic, which could even lead to her death in serious cases. But the girl who knew this still sympathetically told the little dragon to come over. The little dragon's eyes welled up with tears. Does this mean Assel still loves him? So he immediately threw himself into Assel's arms and cried pitifully. That evening, Assel found the little dragon curled up in a chair. He told her, "I want to sleep by myself today." But the next second, Assel gently lifted his little blanket, noticing the little dragon crying underneath. She tenderly wiped his tears and carried him to the bedroom. The little dragon hurriedly tried to act strong, saying, "I really can sleep by myself, don't worry about me." Assel smiled and tucked him in. "I'm scared to be alone, will baby keep me company?" And because the little dragon was exhausted from a whole day of worry and fear, he had already cried himself out and quickly fell asleep. Time moved to the next day. Assel stretched and prepared to get up, but found the space beside her empty. However, she soon found the dragon at yesterday's chair. Only the little one was trembling all over, not knowing if it was from the cold. So Assel picked him up. But at that instant, the little dragon was startled awake. He cried out, then immediately pushed Assel away. However, when he realized what had happened, the little dragon froze in shock. Looking at Assel, who had been pushed to the ground, he was too panicked to speak. What had he done? In the following period, the little dragon became silent. When Assel asked why he was avoiding her, he wouldn't say. Assel thought, could it be because I haven't formed a contract with him, so baby is afraid of draining my magic? But the one who should form a contract with the dragon is this world's protagonist. And can someone like me, such a terrible villain, really give the little dragon happiness? That night, Assel returned from outside, but found the little dragon missing. She searched every corner of the house, but couldn't find any trace of the little dragon. Frightened, she hurriedly went outside to search, calling baby again and again. Finally, a kind woman stopped. "Miss, did something happen?" Assel quickly described, "Baby, my baby is missing. He's this tall with black hair." The woman said she could help search. What's your child's name? And just this question made Assel realize, a name? That's right, all this time he didn't even have a name. Assel kept calling Baby while tirelessly searching, but though she looked everywhere in town, she still found nothing. She sat exhausted on the stairs and couldn't help thinking, did he go find another master because I wouldn't form a contract with him? And just when she was in despair, she suddenly heard a sound from behind. Assel slowly opened the door, knowing this was her last hope. And he was indeed behind a pile of boxes, finding the little dragon who had transformed into beast form and was crying inconsolably. Assel hurriedly hugged him. Baby, you should answer me when you're home, making me look everywhere for you. But the next second she felt dizzy again. The little dragon knew he was draining her magic again, so he quickly escaped. Assel, you can't hug me. But Assel didn't care and just trembled while crying. Baby, why didn't you answer me when you were home? The little dragon hesitantly said, because... Assel, you actually hate me, right? I really like Assel and want to be with Assel forever, but you'd rather be in pain than form a contract with me. I feel like Assel finds me annoying, and if you don't form a contract with me, staying together will only make your body worse. I'm afraid of being hated by Assel, afraid of causing your death. After hearing this, Assel was silent for a while. Then she spoke, Baby, it's not like that. I've never hated you. You're right that I originally didn't plan to form a contract with you. But being with you makes me really happy because you're just too cute. I didn't rush to make a decision, just kept you by my side. If that made you feel hurt, I'm sorry. Baby, although I'm a terrible adult. If you don't mind, would you like to live with me? The little dragon hesitated after hearing this, but still followed his heart and stepped forward. Then without hesitation touched his head to Assel's palm. At that moment, a brilliant yellow light flashed. Assel looked up. She saw the little dragon had transformed back to human form, and tears had unknowingly rolled down his cheeks. Unlike the previous sadness and despair, now there was only emotion and passion. Then he threw himself into Assel's arms. From now on, he no longer had to fear that hugs would harm Assel. However, Assel needed to give the little dragon a name to complete the contract. Assel recalled the name given in the novel was from an ancient language meaning darkest night. It was probably chosen because he was a black dragon. But Assel didn't want to call him that, because the little dragon wasn't just a black dragon but the world's cutest baby. The next second a name suddenly appeared in her mind, Mule. Assel told the little dragon it's a combination of the ancient language Mu for clear watch and Ihol for blue, so is Mule. The little dragon was overjoyed, repeating his name again and again. The next second the whole house became bright and sparkling, like a palace made of jewels. And Assel also found a new pattern had appeared on her hand. This must be the contract mark. Just then there was suddenly a knock at the door. Assel was confused. Had Sir Leonard returned? Just as she was about to open the door, she suddenly found the doorknob turning from the outside. Assel wondered if she hadn't locked the door. But the next second, Leonard burst through the door. He pointed his gun at Assel. His cold eyes revealed killing intent. Answer me. Assel, is it really you? The male protagonist chose to live together with the villain in order to arrest her. The usually cold-blooded count who killed without blinking an eye. Thus became her exclusive male housekeeper. Life became only doing laundry and cooking for her, drawing her baths. Even the doctor advised them to show restraint. But it was all fake. Cleaning the house was to throw away her magic items. Holding her hand was to confirm fingerprints. But what he didn't know was the villain before him was no longer the witch Assel, but a transmigrator. However, the sharp male protagonist soon noticed this point. He casually brought up her ex-boyfriend, and deliberately emphasized she already had over a dozen prior offenses. But the girl's reactions were all very calm. This further confirmed his suspicions. So that night he questioned the villain at gunpoint. The villain understood she couldn't hide it anymore. So she honestly told the male protagonist that her name was Noya, a corporate slave from Guapi City. She came to this world after dying from 996 overtime work. As for the original Assel, she had already died before her transmigration. She didn't know the cause of death. The male protagonist knew her words sounded like nonsense and there was no evidence. But for some reason he still involuntarily lowered his gun. Then he suddenly noticed the contract mark on Assel's hand with the dragon. But why was there a force rampaging inside her body even though they had already formed a contract? And the next second Assel suddenly blacked out. She collapsed uncontrollably. When she opened her eyes again, she found the male protagonist and little dragon looking at her concernedly. He told Assel she had been unconscious for 2 hours. Then he tested her temperature with his hand, quickly discovering Assel had a fever. Thinking Assel would catch cold sitting here, he gallantly carried her to his room. The next day Leonard said although there was no evidence he would trust Assel this once. However, the current little dragon came from a dragon egg that was previously stolen from the Imperial City. So did Assel steal the dragon egg? The girl honestly told him it wasn't like that. At the time the dragon egg was in a market corner and she thought it was an ostrich egg, so she wanted to take it home to eat. Unexpectedly when she cracked it open she found a little black dragon inside. After hearing this Leonard also wanted to figure out why Assel's body became weak after forming the contract. Then he hesitated for a moment and said "Excuse me" with a red face. Then placed his hand on Assel's abdomen. Leonard found her magic was still unstable and she seemed to have a fever again. And the area around her contract mark was swollen. Just then Assel suddenly said, "It hurts when your hand touches here." A certain pure-minded man's face grew redder as he quickly apologized. Next Leonard wanted to investigate the little dragon. He found that not only did Assel's body have dragon magic, but the whole house was full of it. So he wanted Assel to try using magic. "Can you try attacking me now?" "Any kind of attack is fine." Little did he expect the naturally dense Assel would say, "Is it okay if I slap you?" This made Leonard angry. "I mean magical attacks." After realizing this Assel immediately retorted, "Sir, I've already said I can't use magic. When will you believe me?" After thinking for a while, Leonard said it might be a problem with the contract. It turns out dragons would resonate with humans who contacted them from incubation. After hatching, since they could only officially contract with one person, they needed to sever resonance with other candidates. And now he hadn't cut off resonance with the person who had contacted the dragon egg. So Leonard asked the little dragon, "Little one, you said earlier you heard human voices before coming out of the egg. Was it a woman or man?" The little dragon said it was a woman's voice. Speaking of this, Assel suddenly remembered the novel's protagonist Linnea. In the original story, she was supposed to be the first person to contact the dragon. Suddenly, the little dragon's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I'm sorry, I seem to only bring Assel pain." "Baby, have you forgotten our promise? We agreed not to blame each other. This was my choice, I'll bear the consequences. I absolutely won't hate you. As for the resonance, we just need to find that person and cut it off, so come look for them with me." At this moment the little dragon's eyes had a hint of heat, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples. After a long while he smiled and nodded at Assel, feeling that the road ahead didn't seem so difficult anymore. The next day, Assel and Leonard came to the market, the place where she had found the dragon egg. After inquiring, they learned that a week ago a young woman from out of town had come by. From her accent, they could tell she was from the capital. However, she wore a cloak so no one saw her face. If that's the case, maybe this person was the one who contacted the dragon egg. After returning home, Leonard said he needed to go back to the capital. Since they had ruled out Noya as the egg thief, he had no reason to stay here. He would continue searching for the culprit. As for the original Assel's death, if it wasn't suicide, Leonard would investigate that too. And so he was about to leave, but when he reached the doorway he hesitated. Then Noya heard him say, "Miss, I've been very rude to you during this time. Doing your laundry and cooking was the best way I could think of to apologize. I hope you understand." "Hee, speaking of that, sir, you really have a talent for housework. Why not retire and become my housekeeper?" After hearing this, Leonard coolly replied, "Impossible. Hee, people's thoughts can change at any time. Have a safe journey." "Handsome, sir." And so Leonard left her manor. Sitting in the back of the carriage, he sighed. After all, it would take 6 days to reach the destination. If unlucky and couldn't catch the night train, would have to keep stopping at inns. This period of time would really be long. So in his boredom he could only look at the notebook in his hand. It recorded things that needed investigation. As for the last item, it was Assel's murder case. Although that woman wasn't Assel, she possessed Assel's body. And the black dragon would surely cause huge chaos in the future. At that time he would also be drawn into the center of the whirlpool. As for having already ruled out Noya during the investigation, he probably wouldn't come back to this remote countryside again. Would never again clean that messy little house, would never again wake that lazy woman up every morning, then force her with her bad stomach to properly eat meals. But she had become the dragon's master and couldn't keep living such a lazy life. At that time they would surely meet again. And if he uncovered the truth about Assel's case? What if he could see his true appearance? But thinking of this, he suddenly felt somewhat ashamed, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. Really now, why am I thinking about these things? What exactly am I expecting? Just then the broadcast suddenly announced the train to his destination would depart in 10 minutes. He needed to board. But just as he stood up, a beautiful blue suddenly appeared before his eyes. That lazy woman he had to coax awake every day was right here, smiling. "Sir, you're so slow." Leonard suddenly felt everything before him seemed unreal. He asked Noya why she was here, but heard her say, "Didn't you hear me say before? I also want to find that egg thief. Meaning we'll both be assisting with your investigation. The train's about to leave. If you keep dawdling, we'll leave without you." At this moment, it touched the softest part of Leonard's heart. A strange warmth suddenly flowed from within him towards his limbs. After a long while, he couldn't help but smile. Looks like there will be a lot of trouble ahead. A woman woke up to find her ex-boyfriend appearing at her bedside. Even more unfortunate was that her current boyfriend walked in at this moment. And even more unfortunate was that her ex-boyfriend had taken advantage while she was unaware, and repeatedly rubbed her lips 520 times. Then he frantically ran away, leaving only her and her current boyfriend, who was frozen in place. "Come here, I have something to discuss with you." It turned out that 3 days ago, to help find the culprit, Noya boarded a train to the capital with Leonard. But Leonard soon discovered something was wrong, because people disguised as vendors would occasionally monitor their every move. Leonard speculated this must be related to Assel's murder case. After all, Assel was the continent's most powerful witch, yet was easily killed by the murderer, without even leaving any external wounds. Now Noya had transmigrated into Assel's body. Moreover, she had now become the Black Dragon's master, so they must remain vigilant at all times. So Assel used the little dragon's invisibility magic to successfully shake off the monitors. Just when they thought the crisis was over, a bullet suddenly shot towards them. Leonard quickly pulled her aside. Fortunately, it only shot off a few strands of Assel's hair. Leonard understood the other party had seen through Assel's invisibility magic. They must also be magic users. And they seemed to be getting closer and closer. So he immediately decided to split up with Assel. He had Assel jump to the previous train car while he stayed behind to cover her retreat. "Miss Noya, I need to shake them off. Let's meet at Batuum Station at noon in 3 days. You must stay safe." After saying this, he disconnected the lock between the train cars. Then smiled brilliantly, "Noya, good luck." Just then the magic users also arrived here. But they were no match for Leonard and were quickly subdued. Leonard deliberately left one alive, hoping to get information about the murderer from him. The person told him someone from the magic department had given them orders, but it was to capture Assel, not assassinate her. Leonard speculated that the person who wanted to capture her and the person who killed Assel should be the same one. And the murderer who killed Assel knew that the current Assel was not the past Assel. Time quickly moved to evening. Assel, who had separated from Leonard, was watching the stars with the little dragon. But just then someone knocked on the compartment window from outside. It was an old person saying they bought the wrong seat, asking Noya if they could sit together. The kind-hearted Noya couldn't bear to refuse the elderly person, so she opened the door. What greeted her eyes was an old woman and a man in a black cloak. The two walked in and Noya was about to complain about why the man had to sit next to her, but found that after he removed his cloak he was actually a handsome blonde man. The next second Noya suddenly noticed that the elderly person sitting opposite had disappeared. Suddenly the man beside her spoke up, "Assel, long time no see. Do you really plan to cut ties with me completely? If so, I would be very sad. When you almost lost your head back then, I helped you several times." This scared the chronically single Noya badly. After all, she didn't know who this little blonde was. The little dragon noticed the man's frivolous behavior and was also trembling with anger. Noya immediately adjusted her emotions and then planned to pretend to have amnesia. "Sorry, who are you? How dare just anyone come bother me?" Then she also imitated Assel's arrogant manner and angrily grabbed the man's neck. But he remained calm. "I am your friend and also your lover. I am your lifesaver and also the person who understands you best in the world, even more than Leonard." After saying this, he actually touched Noya's wrist. Noya quickly dodged away in fright, but still tried to stay composed. "Sorry, but I've forgotten many things. I can't remember a single thing about you. Who knows if you're just a creep claiming to be my former lover because you know I have amnesia. Asshole, that's what I should say. How do I know if you really forgot about me? Or perhaps someone drove Asshole away, then occupied her body. Saying this, he immediately unleashed fire magic straight at Noya. The little dragon was furious and immediately neutralized his magic. The man smiled and apologized. I just wanted to confirm if you were really Asshole. Seeing you so calm, I know it's real. Little did he know Noya was actually too scared to move. After coming to her senses, she immediately said coldly, "Whatever I am is none of your business. Please get out." Then she used magic to move the rope nearby, and tied up the little blonde in a convenient shape. Then kicked him out of the train car. The next day, Noya caught a cold because she had been anxious and scared all night. Since the train wouldn't depart again until afternoon, Asshole had to get off first. Little did she know, as soon as she left the compartment, someone looked at her with delight. "Hello, beautiful lady. Because you kicked me out, I slept in the corridor all night. Are you sick? This is a remote rural school, so there's no proper hospital. Do you need my help?" Hearing the little blonde's endless chatter, Noya was internally exasperated. So she looked back at the little dragon, and her baby, who shared a spiritual connection, immediately understood Noya's meaning. So he transformed into a little black dragon and gave him a good beating. Noya sighed, thinking finally she could have some peace and quiet. Time quickly moved to afternoon. Noya ordered a table of delicious food on the train, planning to have a happy afternoon tea with the little dragon. However, what she didn't expect was that a certain someone stuck to her like glue, even sitting happily across from her. She angrily cursed him as a stalker and asked when he would get lost. The little blonde laughed. "I'm not a stalker. I followed because I'm worried about my deeply beloved. Even if you don't remember me, the bond between us won't disappear. And Adrian is my name. Don't keep calling me hey." After hearing this, Noya called out Adrian and then recalled the novel. She seemed to have heard this name before. And when Adrian heard her call his name after so long, he froze for a moment. Then, like a pure-hearted young man, his ears secretly turned red. But the next second he heard Noya say, "You should give up on me. I've completely forgotten everything from the past." Little did she know that hearing her say this made Adrian's hand freeze and drop his cup. He looked at Noya with a bitter heart, like a dejected stray dog. She felt awkward. It seemed this man had genuine feelings for Asshole. Was she hurting him? "Sorry if I spoke too harshly. You can follow me if you want. But I have one condition. You need to help me get rid of those monitors outside." The little blonde smiled and agreed, then regained his energy. Soon the three arrived at a city. Noya was admiring the beautiful scenery before her, when unexpectedly the man hugged her from behind. The little dragon was obviously angrier than Asshole. He kicked Adrian away. "Get away. Stay away from Noya. Don't keep crossing her boundaries when Noya doesn't like it. Asshole probably finds you very annoying now." And so a formless killing intent developed between man and dragon. Asshole on the side stared at the little dragon somewhat absent-mindedly before breaking into laughter. "Ha ha. Baby's speech has improved so much lately, it's already as connected as an adult's." However, what kind of person was this man? He looked like an idle young master, but since he could handle those assassins, he must be quite capable. Thinking of this, Noya went up close to observe him. "Hey, why did we break up?" When she asked this, the man who had been smiling just now suddenly lowered his head. "What's the point of asking these things now when you don't care at all? You ask why we broke up? Looks like you've completely forgotten what you did to me. But Asshole, even if you forget, those things won't just disappear. So I advise you not to be too cold to me. Whether in the past or now, what other man would pursue you out of love like this?" After hearing this, Noya instantly fell silent. She felt that Adrian's feelings for Asshole seemed to have something else besides love. 10 minutes later they arrived at the train station. But the ticket seller told Noya that because of yesterday's terrorist attack on the train, all railways were paralyzed today. Meanwhile, the little dragon sat eating ice cream, obediently beside Adrian. He noticed Adrian's bell had been ringing. The little dragon realized it seemed to have been ringing the whole way. Could it have some special meaning? Then the man darkly pressed it down. That expression was unlike his previous enthusiasm and sunshine, replaced by intelligence and coldness. And the little dragon saw all of this. Soon Noya told them that because the trains were stopped, they would need to stay here for these 2 days. So she booked 2 large rooms, one for herself and the little dragon, while the little blonde would stay in the other. But for some reason her cold got worse. So she could only lie down and rest all day. The little dragon cried anxiously, not wanting Noya to suffer. So the worried little dragon pitter-pattered downstairs. His tiny body climbed onto the tall table. Then used the hotel's phone to call Leonard. "Woo-woo uncle, when are you coming back? If Noya dies, I'll kill you too." Hey, what does it have to do with me? If we're really keeping score, Noya got sick because of you." Hearing this, the pitiful little dragon cried even louder. Little did they know Adrian had seen all of this. He knew the little dragon would still be on the phone for a while. So he immediately got a key to Noya's room from the front desk using the excuse of losing it. Then successfully opened the door. Looking at the girl he had longed for but couldn't have. He actually went straight up to her.